In this video, we're going to be looking at the zero index. The zero index is also known as index rule number 4. It's a very important index rule, but it can be a little bit tricky for some students. We can see in the middle of the screen here the index number 2 to the power of 0. My question to you is, what do you think 2 to the power of 0 is equal to? When I ask that question, most students will tell me that the answer is equal to 0. That is not true. 2 to the power of 0 is equal to 1. This confuses a lot of students. They know that 2 times 0 gives them 0. So when they see 2 to the power of 0, many students automatically assume that the answer is 0. But this is not the case. In this video, we're going to look at why any number to the power of 0 is equal to 1. In other words, why is it so? To look at why any number raised to the power of 0 is equal to 1, we're going to look at two different approaches. At the head of my screen here, you can see that I have the fourth index law written down for you. It says that any number or pronumeral raised to the power of 0 is equal to 1. And index law number 4 looks like this. Underneath, we're going to look at our two different approaches. The first approach is a numerical approach. The second approach is by looking at number patterns in a table. Let's look at the first approach. On the left-hand side here, you'll see that I have a sum here, 2 squared divided by 2 squared. If we take a numerical approach here, we know that 2 squared is equal to 4. So that 2 squared divided by 2 squared becomes 4 divided by 4. We all know from our arithmetic work from primary school that 4 divided by 4 is equal to 1. Now, I'd like you to keep that idea in your head, that 2 squared divided by 2 squared is equal to 1. And now let's look at the same question, but using index law 2. We all know that when we are dividing two index numbers with the same base, we subtract the indices. So 2 squared divided by 2 squared will equal 2 to the power of 2 minus 2. 2 minus 2 is equal to 0. So another way of looking at this problem is to say that 2 squared divided by 2 squared is equal to 2 to the power of 0. However, in the previous approach, we saw that 2 squared divided by 2 squared was equal to 1. Now, if 2 squared divided by 2 squared can equal 1 and 2 to the power of 0 at the same time, it therefore follows that 2 to the power of 0 is also equal to 1. In our second approach, let's look at the table at the bottom. In this table, we have a series of index numbers, all with a base of 10. If we look at the top row here, you can see we've got 10 to the power of 0, 10 to the power of 1, 10 squared, 10 cubed, 10 to the power of 4, 10 to the power of 5. In the second row, we can see those index numbers expanded. 10 to the power of 1 is 10, 10 squared is 10 times 10. 10 cubed is 10 times 10 times 10. 10 to the power of 4 is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. And 10 to the power of 5 is 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. In the third row, we've got the numerical answer. So we can see that 10 to the power of 1 is equal to 10. 10 squared is 100. 10 cubed is 1,000. 10 to the power of 4 is 10,000. 10 to the power of 5 is 100,000. Now we're going to look at mainly here the top row and the third row. If I work backwards from 10 to the power of 5 to 10 to the power of 4, 10 to the power of 3, 10 to the power of 2, 10 to the power of 1, 10 to the power of 0, we can see that each index number is going down by 1. We can also see that with the numerical values in the third row, that in each case I'm dividing by 10. 100,000 divided by 10 gives me 10,000. 10,000 divided by 10 gives me 1,000. 1,000 divided by 10 gives me 100. 100 divided by 10 gives me 10. Now if I continue both patterns, I'm going to say 10 divided by 10 gives me 1. Continuing the pattern from the first row, 10 to the 1 becomes 10 to the 0. So using this number pattern, we can see that 10 to the power of 0 is equal to 1. So it follows that any number or pronumeral raised to the power of 0 is equal to 1. So this means if I'm given a question which asks me to find 7 to the power of 0, the answer will be equal to 1. If I'm asked to solve a problem which says a to the power of 0, the answer will be 1. If I'm asked to do a question which says 3 times 2 to the power of 0, that will equal 3 times 1, which is equal to 3. If I'm asked to do something like b to the power of 0 divided by 5, that means that I have 1 divided by 5, which is 1/5. So this is an application of the fourth index law. It's also known as the zero index, and it says that any number or pronumeral raised to the power of 0 equals 1. Thank you for listening.